Conditionals allow your script to take different actions depending on some certain state. They are frequently referred to as if-then rules, even though they are more than that. In the script ifexamples.sh, we see three different conditional if statements. The first if statement tests to see if Etsy is a directory, as indicated by the -d. Bash has a variety of file tests built into it. We will see more of them in a later shell script. For now, let's look at how the if statement is organized. The double brackets tell Bash we want to perform a test. The expression inside the brackets is evaluated and used to determine if the conditional code is executed. If the expression evaluates to true, in this case that Etsy is a directory, the code inside the if statement is executed. This grouping of code is called a block. In this case, it is one line, but it is frequently more than one. Note that the test is followed by a semicolon and the then keyword. The fi keyword tells Bash that it has reached the end of the conditional. The code inside the if statement, in this case just an echo, is only executed if the test evaluates to true. If it evaluates to false, Bash skips over all of the conditional code and starts executing after the fi keyword. The next if statement adds an else statement. Code inside the else block is executed if the test returns false. In this example, the code inside the if block executes if the file sample.txt exists, and the code inside the else block executes if it doesn't. If the file does exist, only the first block of code will be executed. Bash will skip over the else block and continue executing after the fi keyword. Sometimes you need more options than simply true or false. In the last if statement, we test the value of a local variable, test_var. We have two valid values against which we test. To do this, we use an elif statement. Elif is short for else if, and programmers are too lazy to type those 3 extra letters. If the first test in the if statement fails, the elif statement will be evaluated. If the elif test fails, the else statement will be executed. You can have as many elif statements as you need, but they will be tested from top down. The code block associated with the first test that evaluates to true will be executed. After that, the rest of the conditional will be skipped. You don't have to have an else block if it doesn't make sense for your task. However, you can have only one else block if you do need it. Think of an else statement as a catch-all that will execute if all the other tests fail. Let's run this script to see what the output is. We see that Etsy is a directory. We also see that the file sample.txt does not exist. This means that the else block was executed since the test failed. In the last test, we see that test_var does indeed equal the string test. Now that you have an idea of how conditional statements work, let's look at some other types of comparisons we can use. The script comparisonexamples.sh contains examples of performing numerical and string comparisons. We first define some variables with numerical data. Here we have 6 different numerical comparisons. The first is not equals, which is denoted by -ne. The second is equals, denoted by -eq. Next, greater than by -gt. Greater than or equal to -ge. less than dash LT, and less than or equal to with dash LE. Remember, these are numeric comparisons. We then have some string variables we define or use with string comparisons. String comparisons, we have equals, denoted by two equal signs, not equals, denoted by the exclamation point and an equal sign, and then less than by the less than sign, and greater than the greater than sign. Note that we cannot use these numeric comparisons with string data or string comparisons with numeric data. Let's run the script to see the output. Notice that all the tests were designed to pass. After this video is done, I suggest that you play around with each of these scripts to see how the script's execution changes when you modify values. The last script, caseexample.sh, introduces two new concepts. First, it introduces a case statement. A case statement is essentially an if statement with multiple elif statements. Second, it uses a command line argument. The $1 variable shown here contains the string provided on the command line. Let's run the script real quick to see how it works before we dive into the case statement more. The script accurately determines that the command line argument 5 is between 4 and 6. Let's go back to the script and look at the case statement some more. The criteria used to determine which case statement will be executed is placed at the beginning of each statement and is denoted by a closing parentheses. Each case statement ends with a double semicolon. These are required. The last statement asterisk matches anything. Think of this as the equivalent of an else block or an if statement. It also ends with the keyword ESAC, which is case backwards. Note that the case statements are looking for exact text, not numbers. They are essentially using the matching criteria we used with grep and regular expressions. If we run the script and provide a number with a fraction or decimal, it doesn't understand the value. Conditional statements are an integral part of Bash scripts. They allow your scripts to handle errors, use command line arguments, and a myriad of other situations you will commonly encounter as you write scripts.